Welcome back to News Talk. We're just days away from one of the most closely watched Senate races in the country. Maryland voters set to go to the polls next Tuesday to decide the Democratic primary between two veteran members of Congress, 4th District incumbent Donna Edwards and 8th District incumbent Chris Van Hollen, two Democrats. The polls are all over the map, leading most to believe that the race is very fluid. Pollster Keith Haller has been tracking Maryland politics as long as anyone. He's one of the best. He joins us now with some thoughts and analysis on this. Keith, as always, thank you very much for your time. Two heavyweights here, two people who are known brands in Maryland politics, particularly within the Democratic Party. They are running for the seat that comes open as Barbara Mikulski decides to retire after a long and storied career. Your thought about where the race between Edwards and Van Hollen stands right now?
Yeah, how are you doing, Bruce? Good to be with you. You know, surprisingly, it is a very close election with, less than a week to go. And, as you said, the public surveys have been all over the map, operating within the, margin of sampling error. So some of the last polls had Van Hollen ahead, and a few of the others, like the Washington Post, had Edwards with a modest edge. Generally in primary elections, you want to look at who has the momentum and who has the best ground game. But I think given the restive mood of the electorate, I think there may be some other external factors at play. Still enough undecided, enough persuadable Democrats to kind of shift the outcome to either Van Hollen or Edwards in the final days.
Seemingly, Keith, we see a race that draws more intense by the day. There have been charges and countercharges. There's outside money. So you've got ads sort of piling on top of ads, each one attempting to answer and push back against what was said 12 or 24 hours prior. I won't say it's horribly nasty or anything unprecedented, certainly in American politics, but no mistaking the intensity level of this race quite high as we draw closer to Tuesday.
It's amazing how politics or an election like this can ruin political friendships, and I'm sure a lot of Democrats are just hoping that there won't be bad blood after the race. Lots of wild cards that we should be looking at. I think trying to predict turnout, especially among African Americans, most notably in Baltimore City and Prince George's. The other wild card is whether Van Hollen, with so many African American official endorsements and their kind of overt support, will allow Van Hollen to kind of keep Edwards' support among black Democrats to less than a stellar number. Sometimes the African American support in a race like this can be, like 40% of the statewide total, and Edwards appears to be selling her message, "I've walked in your shoes," seems to be resonating among African American women.
There are several interesting storylines in this race, and one of them I think can fairly be said to be this notion of sort of ideological purity versus a willingness to compromise because it's only through some give and take, the theory goes, that you get anything done. That's been a fascinating aspect of the dialogue that the two are engaging in.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that Edwards can make the case that Van Hollen is not progressive enough for Maryland or for Democrats. I mean, we're really talking about, cutting the onion pretty thin here, and you have to really have some inside baseball on legislation and certain votes and stuff like that to make hide or hair of the differences. So she has positioned herself as sort of the outsider in the race. Picking up on what's happening at the national level. She has a compelling message. Probably right for the moment. Whether or not she's connecting at the grassroots in Baltimore City or elsewhere, I think that's the big question at this juncture.
Republicans have been in the win column in Maryland recently. Larry Hogan scoring a big upset in the fall of 2014, obviously in his race against the favorite, the sitting Lieutenant Governor, Democrat Anthony Brown. Could we see lightning strike again? Could a similar scenario where a moderate Republican goes against the grain in terms of what registration numbers would suggest would be the outcome, and bring the GOP another win in Maryland?
As I said, I've heard in the last few days there's a lot of discomfiture on the part of many Democratic leaders that the race has gotten so negative, and such negativity could spill over in the general election and may give the Republican Senate nominee an opportunity to turn this seat away from Democrats. Nobody would believe that. That would be the shocker of all time. But once you get into a general election, the turnout and the people that make the ultimate decision are very different than a small turnout primary. So, you hear that if Edwards somehow becomes the nominee, there may be some fallout, and then the seat becomes somewhat competitive for the Republicans.
Needless to say, this race doesn't come in a vacuum. No race does. And in the case of Van Hollen versus Edwards, you've got people coming to the polls for a variety of reasons. Some want to make their voice heard and their vote count. In terms of the Clinton-Sanders race in Baltimore City, you have a hotly contested mayoral primary on the Democratic side that will likely determine the ultimate outcome, the ultimate winner. And you've got House races in the 4th and the 8th, significant primaries that come open as a result of, ultimately it's the Mikulski retirement that has all these parts in motion. So the Senate candidates are impacted by all of this, the up ballot and the down ballot, but sort of piecing together ahead of time what impact all that has, I think, is really tough to do.
It certainly is. And then I think about the anniversary of the Freddie Gray incident happening the day after the primary in the city. That is creating a sort of a cauldron of interesting, public opinion, and whether that spills off in the Senate race. And it's hard to ignore what's happening in the presidential race. So there's a lot of angst, a lot of unpredictability among the electorate, and our guess is it's probably going to appear demonstrably on next Tuesday.
We mentioned that the primary is Tuesday. It's April the 26th. Of course, early voting has been underway in Maryland for several days. That wraps up tomorrow the 21st, so many people taking advantage of this voting window now to vote at a time that's convenient for them. After tomorrow the 21st, if you haven't voted early, you'll vote on Election Day. Pollster and political analyst Keith Haller, one of the best. He's with Potomac Incorporated. Always good to hear your voice.
Yeah, Bruce, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. We'll be talking with you again soon. We're back with a program note after this, so keep it here.